Watch me assemble this fun tin kit from Temu. I'll show you all the custom details I added. There are laser-cut wooden sidewalks included with the kit. I painted the gray sidewalks to look like brick. I'm sanding the edges of the sign and adding some brown marker to make it look older. I'm using chalk pastels to add some more age to the sign. I'm using some trash plastic from a container to add glass to the windows. This kit doesn't require any painting, but I did a bit of painting throughout for more detail. For the window panes on the front door, I'm using some diamond glaze to add the look of glass. You can use the wire included in the kit to make door handles, but I'm using caviar beads. These beads are meant for decorating your fingernails. The included headboard and footboard are lacking detail. I'm using some glue to add some dimension. When the dry glue is painted, it looks like carved wood. Hot glue and a bit of paper towel make a quick and easy mattress. The kit includes red and green plaid fabric. I'm using my own fabric to get an entirely different look. I glued the glass bead to the metal filigree bead cap. The kit includes a bulky plastic chain, but I'm using my own thin metal chain. I'm using super glue to lock all of the links so it won't swing around. Instead of making the balcony from wire, I'm using cardstock. Gluing the wire to itself is frustrating, so I'm avoiding it. Most of this balcony will be covered up by plants later anyway. I created a shabby chic look by painting the balcony brown and then dry brushing it with white. I'm using Amazing Mold Putty to make a mold of a 3-tiered wedding cake that's included in the kit. I like to make molds of miniatures I want to replicate and use later. I'm decorating the original wooden cake as the kit recommends. I'm using a coil of paper as the base for my skirted table. I'll use the table pieces included in the kit for a different project. I'm using a 1/8 inch hole punch to punch out the plate for the cake slice. These natural dried flowers are included. I glued a couple small pieces into the glass bead on the table to look like a flower arrangement. Working with the wire is fiddly, but I did my best to replicate these tiny chairs. To make it easier, I left the legs too long and then trimmed them to size. I didn't like how you can see the light through the hole in the roof, so I filled it. I'm gluing this flimsy paper to some cardstock to give it more weight and make it easier to handle. I'm coloring the white edges with a Sharpie. While I was trimming the center window on the lower wallpaper, I accidentally ruined it. I'm using the lower half of the bookcase to look like wall paneling. This hole gets covered up anyway. These two pieces have a gap, so I'm cutting that piece of wood at an angle so it'll fit nice and tight. I gave it a little trim and then sanded it to get the perfect shape. To dress up the door, I'm using some more trash plastic and a bit of patterned paper from the instructions. I bent and trimmed some wire from the kit to make a door handle. This vase for the bookshelf was made with a bead and some greenery. I used my own nail decor beads and made a tiny pillow for this chair. I'm using some bamboo toothpicks and paper to make a really simple table. I'm punching out the base of the table with my 1/8 inch punch and using a standard punch for the top. This little book was intended to sit on the seat of the chair, but it looks really good on my miniature table. I'm sanding away some of the paint to make this look more like stained wood. This metal bead is from my own collection and makes a great vase. This is another detail I'm making entirely from scratch. In the kit, the bottom level of this building is a miniature cafe. I'm making it look like the lobby of a hotel by using a bit of scrap paper to make a tiny laptop for the desk. This desk is hidden behind the door with 2 chairs and a table between them. I'm changing the layout of this space by adding the desk over here. I made this simple plant stand using a toothpick and some more paper. I'm making this wooden chair look more realistic and comfy by sanding off all of the hard edges. The layout I created is completely different from the original, so I'm covering up the cafe sign. I only used a portion of this awning because I didn't want to hide too much of the room. I'd like to use the tiny dried flowers included in the kit in other projects, so I'm using my own forest moss to cover the edges and the wiring from the lights. This flocking is from a 1980s dollhouse kit for making miniature flower hedges. I'm using some green flocking mixed with glue to fill some of the gaps. I'm making these plastic bunnies look more like Sylvanian Families by adding some beige flocking. While the paint is still wet, I'm dipping it in the tiny fibers so it'll stick to the bunny. I covered her head, hands, and feet. The boy bunny's little tail looks so cute covered in flocking. Thank you for watching until the end.